Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 825, written by Nick Captain. The Transdimensional Debit Card. I went on a business trip up country a couple weeks back. En route, I went through a toll gate and used my company card to pay at the booth. The teller handed back my card and paper receipt, which I placed in the center console. A couple hours later, I stopped to get a coffee and take a break. When I looked in the console, my card was gone and I could only find the paper slip. I searched for the card but had no luck. Thinking I may have left the card at the toll booth or it had somehow fallen out of a pocket somewhere along the way, I called the bank and put a temporary hold on the card. When I got to my destination, I unpacked and searched the car thoroughly. Under seats, carpets, every nook and cranny. Still nothing. So I called the bank again, ordered a new card which was delivered a couple days later, changed all my app settings to the new card number. A lot of admin work and return debit orders later, everything is sorted out and up to date. Exactly a week later to the day, I'm driving along the highway alone. I glance down at the console, and there is my lost card, in broad daylight, in exactly the position I put it, with the paper slip from the toll booth. Case notes for file 825. The Transdimensional Debit Card. Right, so this is another classic DOP event, disappearing object phenomena, and seems like lately they're all just coming back. You guys are kinda lucky, honestly. I want my tennis balls back. Still, what strikes me as very peculiar in this is that it always comes back in the exact same spot that it left in. Or most frequently does. It almost seems like an intent or will, because otherwise the object is still bound by gravity and it's even traveling with the car itself. Even if it was bound by the Earth's gravity, the car itself isn't generating gravity to any extent that would negate the planet, so the card would still be tethered with Earth, but not the car. So how is it still connected to the car? If it's out of phase with that matter, it would just phase right through the car. For that matter, it would still be pulled by gravity and phase right through the ground. So there's something containing it when it's moving outside of our dimensional realm. Or it's literally not out of phase but just not rendered at all. So there's two possibilities. Either it's being contained by some technology or entity in this other dimension, or the universe simply isn't rendering it, and the information is there for the position it's supposed to be in, but it's not being loaded. Bonus file, written by Chelly Bean 2016. My Memoirs of Horror from my childhood home. This happened years ago, but I remember everything clearly, and every time I think or talk about it, the feelings come back. When I was 8, my mom and stepdad moved us to a country home. I have 2 younger siblings as well, so there were 5 of us that lived there. This house was always a little creepy, but it held so much more than just a creepy feeling. I've been able to see things from a very young age. I don't talk much about it because honestly, you always get mixed feelings, so I avoid it. Anyway, when we first moved in, I kept seeing a little boy. He was always in my little brother's room or the kitchen, and he cried a lot, all of the time. I was 8, so I didn't really know why, but I always tried to ask what was wrong. He didn't talk back. I kept telling my mom that a little boy in the kitchen kept waking me up at night, but she never believed me. For a few years, it was just a little boy, but that all changed very, very quickly. Right before my mom and stepdad divorced, they fought all the time. The environment in the house definitely felt hostile, and then he moved out and things went downhill fast. At first, it was just a few extras I'd see at night, usually roaming our L-shaped hallway. Then, weird things started happening. I've never been a great sleeper, so I'd always be awake at night. I'd watch my door open and close by itself. I'd hear banging all throughout the hallway, and when I had to go do laundry in the back room that also housed the entrance to the basement, I'd instantly get a heavy feeling. I went down one time. I got to the second step up from the bottom and took a look around. I saw people chained to the walls, staring at me. I literally ran so fast. I cried and tried to tell my mom, but she told me I was lying. I wasn't. She started believing after she had her own scary encounter, but I'm not sure she'd want me to share it. Anyways, things kept progressing. We couldn't keep a light bulb in the light fixture in the dining room because as soon as we'd change it, the bulb would literally explode, leaving shards of glass all over the floor. I watched a kitchen chair fly across the room, slamming so hard against the wall it left a hole there. We had a lamp in the living room that fell over every single night at the same time. Towards the end of our time there, we slept in the living room with the fireplace on because my mom couldn't afford propane. We had a blanket over the doorway, and when it was open, because someone went to the bathroom, I'd see a lady in white on the dining room floor. She said one sentence and I'll never forget it. "He's coming." She'd repeat it until she had disappeared. My theory is that she was giving us a warning about the demon that paid us a visit every night. He was evil. He was definitely set on making us leave or hurting us. He made his presence well known. Tormenting us was his favorite activity. We always went down the long hallways in pairs after things started getting bad. The one time I didn't take someone, I ended up with scratch marks. Nothing followed us when we moved though. Which is amazing, but I'm very thankful for it. Only one person has lived in that house since we left years ago. He lasted 6 months before he called it quits. It stands empty now at the end of the long driveway. I've been back once. It wasn't a pleasant experience. The house is starting to cave in. I'm sure the farmer will tear it down and connect all his fields, finally. I do have one more piece of information that I love to share about it. When I did research, I found out the ground the house stood on was at one point an Indian burial ground. Later, the point or hill became home to a courthouse for a little town, and they did in fact use the basement as a jail, and they did chain people to the walls. The town died out, and a family bought the ground, tearing down the courthouse and building a house over the basement. The house burned down, killing the family, which included a young boy. And the house that we lived in was constructed in the same spot. Here's some more details on my childhood home. First up, my mom's experience. I will share it. Before we all moved into the living room, her room was at the very end of the hallway, and the bathroom was in between us. It was a normal night, typical lamp falling and door slamming. Eventually, I was able to close my eyes. About an hour later, I was startled awake and I knew instantly something was wrong. I got out of bed and went straight to my mom's room. She was flat on her back in her bed, with her arms crossed against her chest, and I could tell she was trying to scream. I ran to her bed and all of a sudden it's like whatever had a hold of her vanished because she just went limp. She sat up and started screaming. I was scared for her. She ended up sleeping with my sister and I that night in our bedroom. We didn't talk about that night again until just a year or so ago, and she described in detail what happened. She said she was sleeping, and then she woke up out of a dead sleep, staring straight at the ceiling. My mom never sleeps on her back. She physically can't. She was confused and tried to move, but she said it felt like she was being held down by some force. She said she couldn't breathe or talk or even scream. She said that it felt like a pair of hands wrapped around her neck and just started squeezing. When I walked in and ran to her, whatever it was let her go. The last thing she saw before she could finally move was a shadow face floating up into the ceiling. She never slept in that room again. She actually moved her bed into my room instead. When the spirit was present, the house was very heavy. Most of the others that occupied the place were quiet when he was there. His constant torture was enough to drive us insane. He was the cause of most everything that happened. I'm sure he's the one who scratched me. Being alone in the house was a no-no. If you were the only one there, he would do everything in his power to show his presence. One evening, my mom had a 4th of July party. Literally everyone was outside. It was late, but everyone was still good with hanging out around the fire. I made the mistake of going inside by myself. Had I known that not a single person was in there, I would have stayed outside. I went into the kitchen to get a drink. As I was standing there, about to open the fridge, the cabinet that held the plates slammed open. I knew I needed to get out, but I was frozen. The next thing I knew, my mom's glass plates were flying directly towards me. I got hit by several before I snapped back into my reality and got out of there. I never told my mom what truly happened, I just said I broke the plates. Another time, my brother and I were playing hide and seek. It was my turn to count, so I stayed in the living room. Once time was up, I started looking. He had to be in the house, that was the rule. I searched everywhere, high and low. The last place I looked was the laundry room. When I entered, I heard my brother crying. I tried to find him, but I couldn't, which meant the last place for him to be was the basement. I walked over to the door and it was closed. We never closed that door just because it was so hard to get open. I struggled, but finally I got it. My brother came bolting up the stairs, crying like someone had tried to hurt him. Here's what he told me happened. He had gone into the basement only to have the door slammed shut behind him. He was at the bottom of the stairs and he swore that a black shadow was running down them trying to get him. He said he backed himself into the corner. Apparently, he started hearing a voice say he was going to die. He didn't know what to do, so he cried, and that's when I opened the door. He said the shadow vanished. I believe with everything in me that one of us would have ended up seriously injured or worse if we had stayed in the house. Towards the end, I felt like he had a hold on all of us. Our moods and personalities began to take shape as very angry people. I'm sure his energy caused that. A couple days before we moved out, we were all asleep in the living room. The TV was on and so was the light, so it wasn't completely dark. I woke up to something whispering in my ear. All I could make out was "run." Then suddenly there was a loud crashing sound, like glass had been broken. It was so loud everyone else sat straight up out of their beds. We were all trying to figure out what happened. Eventually, we all decided we needed to go walk to the bathroom and take turns with the other three standing guard. When we got to the beginning of the hallway, my mom flipped on the light. We all stopped dead in our tracks. Every single picture that my mom had hung on the wall in the hallway was on the ground. There was glass everywhere. None of us could move. We stood there forever trying to decide what to do. That was our final straw. We decided to get the heck out of there. My mom took a couple days off work to pack the house while we were at school. She ended up leaving the house in the middle of that day and didn't come back until we were with her to finish packing. She was sitting on the living room floor, packing all the DVDs into a box. All of a sudden, her phone started playing the scary "I see you" sound. She immediately got up because she knew that someone was calling her. When she picked up the phone and said hello, the only response she got was heavy breathing. She quickly hung up and tried to pack some more, but it kept happening. She actually ended up smashing that phone because she was in panic mode. She grabbed her stuff and left. We never stayed in that house again. Once we got out of there and adjusted to normal life, we felt lighter. It literally felt like a weight was lifted off our shoulder. Our family had been helping us to get our stuff out. Once the last load was out, the electricity was shut off. My uncle decided he wanted the air conditioner, so he went out to get it and he said he pulled around back to the laundry room door. When he got there, he said the laundry room door was open. He walked slowly towards it. When he made it almost in the house, he realized the basement door was fully open and the light in the basement was on. He realized that the light being on wasn't possible and he booked it out of there. The air conditioners were never recovered. To this day, my sister and I are the only ones that have dared to step foot on the property. Neither of us were alone when we did. My family doesn't talk about it anymore. It's better that way.